It was an ordinary morning at the downtown police station. The buzz of ringing phones, scribbling pens, and the low murmur of conversations filled the air. Officers shuffled papers, filed reports, and occasionally sipped from their lukewarm coffee cups. Everything was as routine as it could get, until the front doors swung open with a soft creak. Standing there, framed by the doorway and bathed in the gray morning light, was something no one had ever expected to see. A lion cub. The small creature was covered in dust and dirt. Its golden fur dulled and matted. Big, worried eyes darted around the station. It wasn't roaring or growling. Instead, it let out a series of low, pleading whines. Its little paws hesitated on the clean linoleum floor as if unsure it was allowed to come further. For a moment, the entire station froze. Even Sergeant Daniels, a man who'd seen just about everything in his 20 years on the force, sat in stunned silence. Papers fluttered to the ground. A half-eaten donut fell from someone's hand. The lion cub, seeing no immediate threat, took a few cautious steps inside. He looked around, clearly searching for someone, or something. His small tail flicked anxiously behind him. A soft, almost apologetic growl came from his throat. Not loud enough to be threatening but just enough to say, "Please notice me." Officer Reyes was the first to move. She carefully set down her coffee, stood, and slowly approached the cub with her palms facing out. "Hey there, little guy," she said, voice low and soothing. "Where did you come from?" Leo, as they would later learn his name was, responded with a gentle head tilt and a tiny rumble. His body visibly shaking, he stepped closer to Reyes, then looked back at the door as if urging her to follow. By now, a few more officers had gathered, forming a loose circle around Leo, though keeping a respectful distance. Some whispered about calling animal control. Others debated whether they should try to catch him. But none of them moved aggressively. Somehow, instinct told them that this wasn't an ordinary animal situation. Reyes crouched down, extending her hand slowly. "It's okay. We're here to help." Leo hesitated, then took a few more steps and pressed his small head into her hand. His fur was gritty and warm. Up close, Reyes could see he was thinner than he should have been, ribs just barely visible under his dusty coat. His whiskers twitched against her skin. "He's not wild," Reyes said, glancing back at her colleagues. "He's tame. He's used to people." Sergeant Daniels finally shook himself out of his shock and barked, "Someone get the vet on call. And animal control too, just in case. Find out if anyone's reported a missing cub." Officers scattered to phones and computers. Meanwhile, Reyes gently coaxed Leo toward a bench in the lobby, where she sat down slowly, letting him curl up at her feet. He let out a long, tired sigh, as if finally feeling safe for the first time in a while. It took less than an hour for the pieces to start coming together. An urgent call came in from a small traveling circus that had set up camp just outside of town. They were missing a lion cub named Leo, escaped during last night's thunderstorm when a tree branch fell and smashed part of their enclosure. They had searched frantically through the night but had found no sign of him. They feared the worst, that he had either been injured, gotten lost, or worse, hurt someone and been hurt in return. The vet arrived shortly after the call. A woman named Dr. Patel. She knelt beside Leo and conducted a quick, gentle exam. Apart from being dehydrated and a little scratched up, he was fine. "He's lucky," Dr. Patel said. And smart. He must have known people could help him. Reyes smiled, scratching gently behind Leo's ear. He picked the right people. When the circus handlers finally arrived, they were a flurry of emotions: tears, laughter, gratitude. Leo, recognizing familiar faces, bounded over to them with a newfound energy, licking their hands and nuzzling their sides. It was clear he had been deeply loved and missed. Before they left, the circus director, a wiry man with a sun-weathered face, turned to the officers. "I can't thank you enough," he said, voice thick with emotion. "Leo's part of our family. We owe you everything." Sergeant Daniels grunted, crossing his arms. "Just doing our job, but maybe think about reinforcing those cages next time." The director nodded solemnly, promising they would, as Leo was carefully loaded into a special, padded carrier for the trip home. A strange emptiness settled over the station. The lobby, moments ago filled with a living, breathing reminder that life could be wildly unpredictable, seemed a little too quiet. Officer Reyes stood by the door, watching the circus van pull away. Beside her, Daniels cleared his throat. "Well," he said, scratching his head, "that's a first." Reyes chuckled softly. "You think we'll get a commendation for rescuing a lion?" Daniels smirked. "Doubt it. But maybe the chief will let you keep one of those donuts you dropped earlier." Reyes laughed, feeling lighter than she had all morning. As she turned back into the station, she could still feel the warmth of Leo's small body leaning against her. Maybe the job wasn't just about catching criminals and filling out paperwork. Maybe sometimes it was about being there when someone, or something, needed help the most. Even if that someone had paws, a tail, and the tiniest, bravest roar. Leo, the little lion cub, sat at Officer Reyes' feet, still trembling slightly. But then, after a few moments of rest, he suddenly stirred. His ears perked up, and his eyes grew more intense. He stood, pawed gently at the floor, and turned toward the door. Then he looked back, fixing his gaze on the humans watching him. Without making a sound, Leo raised his paw and waved it in the air, almost like beckoning. Officer Jake Turner, standing nearby, caught the movement instantly. It wasn't random. It wasn't playful. It was deliberate, urgent. Jake took a step forward, crouching to Leo's level. "You want us to follow you, buddy?" he said quietly. Leo let out a soft whimper, turned toward the door again, and looked back once more. His body language was clear. He was asking for help. Jake didn't waste time. He turned to the others. "He's trying to lead us somewhere. He needs something." Sergeant Daniels, arms folded and brow furrowed, hesitated for a second. "You sure about this, Jake? Could be a wild goose chase." Jake shook his head. "Look at him. He's scared, but he's not running away. He's trying to tell us something." A moment passed. Daniels finally gave a sharp nod. "Fine. You're on point. Take a basic rescue kit. Radio in every 5 minutes. If it looks dangerous, you back out." Jake was already moving. He grabbed a basic rescue pack, first aid supplies, a flashlight, rope, water, a thermal blanket, and secured it across his back. He clipped a radio to his belt, checked the battery, and then jogged toward the door. Leo, seeing Jake ready, let out a short, encouraging grunt and trotted ahead. The two of them moved quickly. Leo's small frame darted between cars and around corners. always glancing back to make sure Jake was still following. The cub's legs moved fast, but his injuries slowed him a little. Still, there was an unmistakable determination in his every step. They moved through the busy streets, causing quite a few double takes from pedestrians. A police officer jogging after a lion cub wasn't something you saw every day. But Jake kept his focus entirely on Leo, ignoring the whispers and the stares. Soon they left the busy part of town behind and crossed into a more industrial area, old warehouses, half-abandoned lots, and cracked concrete sidewalks. Jake stayed alert. This part of town wasn't known for being safe. Leo led him to a crumbling building with boarded-up windows. The place looked forgotten, half swallowed by weeds and graffiti. The cub slipped through a gap in the fence with surprising ease. Jake had to climb it carefully, cursing under his breath when his boot caught on the rusty wire. Once inside, Jake slowed down. His instincts kicked in. He unhooked his flashlight from his belt, clicked it on, and swept the beam around. Dust motes floated thick in the stale air. The walls were covered in peeling paint. The smell of mildew and something fouler lingered. Leo moved ahead, whining softly, tail low. Jake followed, stepping lightly over debris. They made their way through the wreckage until they reached the back of the building. That's when Jake heard it. A faint, muffled sound. Whimpering. It was human. "Hello?" Jake called out, voice firm but not shouting. "Police. Is someone here?" The whimpering grew louder. It was coming from behind a half-collapsed wall. Leo scratched at a pile of broken wood and concrete, whining louder. Jake rushed over, dropping to his knees. He shifted aside pieces of debris carefully. His flashlight caught a glimpse of something, a hand. "Hang on," Jake called, adrenaline surging through him, using the rope from his rescue pack to stabilize some of the heavier pieces. He cleared enough space to reveal a small boy, no older than 6 or 7. The boy was dirty, bruised, and clearly terrified, but alive. Jake quickly assessed him. No major bleeding, no obviously broken bones, just trapped, dehydrated, and scared out of his mind. Jake wrapped the thermal blanket around the boy and radioed back to the station. "This is Officer Turner. Found one child, approximately 6 years old, trapped under debris at the old Franklin warehouse. Alive, responsive, requesting immediate backup and medical assistance." The boy clung to Jake as he picked him up gently. Leo circled them both, letting out a soft, protective growl, like he was guarding the child. Within minutes, backup arrived. EMTs rushed in to take over. Officers secured the area and began clearing a safer path through the wreckage. The boy, still bundled in the blanket, refused to let go of Jake's hand as he was loaded into the ambulance. He kept whispering something over and over, too soft for most to hear. Jake leaned down. "What's that, buddy?" The boy's cracked lips trembled. "The little lion, he stayed with me, he didn't leave me." Jake's throat tightened. He looked down at Leo, who was now sitting calmly beside him, tail swishing lightly against the ground. "You're a hero," Jake said softly, scratching Leo behind the ear. Back at the station later that evening, Sergeant Daniels clapped Jake on the back. "Good work out there," Daniels said. "You trusted your instincts. Saved that kid's life." Jake smiled wearily. Couldn't have done it without Leo. Leo, meanwhile, had become the station's unofficial mascot. Someone had brought him a blanket, a bowl of water, and even a few toys. He lay curled up in the corner, finally resting, finally safe. Everyone in the station knew it. Even if no one said it out loud, Leo had come not just to seek help for himself, but to deliver help to someone else. The little lion's silent plea had been heard, and because of it, a life had been saved. The boy was safe, but Leo wasn't finished. As the ambulance pulled away, Leo tugged gently at Officer Jake's pant leg. His eyes still urgent, he pawed the ground and gave a low whine, glancing out toward the horizon where the city ended and wilderness began. Jake knelt down. "You're not done, are you?" Sergeant Daniels caught the look and muttered, "You've gotta be kidding me." Jake stood, tightening the straps of his rescue kit. "He led us right the first time. I'm not about to start doubting him now." A quick radio call brought 2 more officers, McConnell and Harris, and after a short briefing, the team set off. Leo ran ahead, his small body weaving confidently through empty streets and broken fences, past factories, and finally into dry, barren land. The buildings thinned out, weeds and thorn bushes took over. The ground grew rougher, cracked and dusty under their boots. The sun beat down hard, and the air smelled of rust and dry earth. Leo pushed forward without hesitation, guiding them deeper into the forgotten edges of town. His pace picked up when a small rise appeared in the distance, an old clearing with something in its center. As the team got closer, they saw it, a crumbling, ancient well surrounded by cracked stones and overgrown weeds. The wood and rope structure once covering it had long since rotted away, leaving a gaping hole in the ground. Leo ran to the edge, stopped short, and looked back at them with a frantic bark. Jake's stomach tightened. He rushed forward and peered into the dark opening. At the bottom, maybe 20 feet down, lay a lioness. She was beautiful even in her battered state, her tawny fur dusty and scraped, her body thin and trembling with exhaustion. She lay on her side, breathing heavily, one paw limply reaching up toward the faint light above. Her eyes flickered open at the noise above, and even from that distance, Jake could see the recognition in them. "Jesus," McConnell breathed, peering over Jake's shoulder. "That must be his mom." Jake turned back to the team sharply. "We don't have much time. She's barely holding on." They moved fast. Jake yanked a coil of rescue rope from his pack while McConnell radioed for animal rescue and backup units with specialized gear. Harris unpacked the carabiners and harnesses they carried for emergencies. Leo whined anxiously at the well's edge, pacing back and forth. "It's okay, buddy," Jake said, voice calm. "We're gonna get her out." Jake secured the rope around a sturdy fence post nearby, then fastened a harness around his own body. "I'll go down first," he said. "Lower me slow." McConnell and Harris anchored themselves, carefully feeding the rope as Jake descended into the shaft. Dust and loose stones crumbled down the sides, making it a nerve-wracking, slippery descent. The air grew cooler and damp the deeper he went. When he reached the bottom, Jake landed softly beside the lioness. "Hey girl," he whispered, crouching low, moving slowly to avoid spooking her. Luna lifted her head weakly. She was too exhausted to resist. Jake reached out cautiously, touching her side gently. He felt her ribs sharply under her fur. Dehydrated, battered, but still alive. Jake pulled the second harness from his pack, specially designed for animal rescue. Working carefully, he slid it around her body. murmuring reassurances the whole time. Luna shivered but didn't fight. Above, the team started the slow, careful process of hoisting him up. It was agonizingly slow. Luna's weight made it harder than expected, and every creak of the old well walls sent small rocks raining down. Jake kept one arm securely around her, shielding her from falling debris. Finally, a pair of strong hands reached down. McConnell and Harris grabbed Jake and Luna together, dragging him the last few feet over the well's crumbling edge. They collapsed onto the dry ground. Leo rushed forward immediately, whining and licking Luna's face. She let out a soft rumble, weak but full of affection. She nuzzled her cub with what little strength she had left. Jake knelt beside them, breathless but smiling. Animal rescue arrived minutes later, bringing a special stretcher and medical gear. Luna was placed carefully onto the stretcher, an IV already being set up to rehydrate her. As they loaded her into the transport vehicle, Leo refused to leave her side. The rescuers, seeing the bond between them, allowed him to ride along, curled protectively against her body. Sergeant Daniels stood next to Jake, arms crossed. "You're a stubborn son of a gun," Daniels said. "Good thing, too." Jake gave a tired grin. "Wouldn't have found her without Leo." Daniels nodded slowly. "Instinct. Heart. Sometimes that's all the map you need." They watched as the vehicle carrying Luna and Leo disappeared down the dirt road toward the animal care center. Back at the station later, Jake sat on the front steps, a bottle of water in hand, staring out at the setting sun. His clothes were torn, dusty, his muscles ached, but he felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Reyes came out and dropped a donut into his lap. "Hero's reward," she said, grinning. Jake chuckled, taking a bite without protest. Inside, the buzz of the station was louder than usual. Everyone was telling the story, how a little lion cub had come to their door. Not just asking for help, but leading them to a desperate, silent plea for rescue. In a way, Leo had saved him too, reminded them that sometimes courage didn't roar. Sometimes it simply asked for help and trusted that someone would listen. And because they did, a family was whole again. The rescue team moved with practiced urgency. Within minutes of assessing Luna's condition at the bottom of the dry well, the officers and animal rescue specialists sprang into action. They knew this wasn't going to be easy. Every move had to be perfect. A single mistake could cost both Luna's life and put the rescuers in danger. A heavy-duty rope ladder was unrolled and carefully lowered into the well. At the same time, a specialized harness, designed for large animals, was readied. The team worked methodically, communicating in sharp, clear phrases. Officer Jake tightened his gloves and secured his harness. He exchanged a quick glance with Officer Reyes, who nodded grimly. Jake was going down again. But this time, not alone. 2 members of the animal rescue team clipped into the belay system behind him, ready to help maneuver Luna safely. Above, McConnell and Harris anchored the ropes against the back of the rescue truck, their muscles taut with tension. Leo stood silently by the well's edge, his small body rigid, his golden eyes locked onto the scene below. Every few seconds, he let out a soft, low growl, steady, rhythmic, almost like he was chanting for his mother to hold on. "All right, lower us down," Jake called. The rope creaked under their combined weight as they descended. Dust stirred around them, choking the air. The shaft felt narrower now, the walls pressing in. Jake's heart pounded in his ears. But he forced his breathing to stay calm. When they reached the bottom, Luna barely stirred. Her strength was nearly gone. But when Jake knelt beside her, she opened her eyes and let out a faint rumble. He could see the fear behind her exhaustion. She didn't understand what was happening, but somewhere in her instinct, she trusted them, maybe because of Leo's presence above. "Easy, girl," Jake whispered. The two rescue specialists moved in sync. Working fast but gentle, they slid the thick, padded harness around Luna's body, adjusting the straps carefully to avoid putting pressure on her bruises. "She's lighter than she should be," one of them muttered. "Starving." Jake grimaced. "Let's get her out." They gave the signal, and above, McConnell and Harris started pulling. The pulley system whined under the strain. Slowly, Luna's body began to rise. Jake and the rescuers guided her as she ascended, making sure she didn't swing or hit the crumbling walls. Dust and pebbles rained down, and several times Jake had to throw up an arm to shield his face. Halfway up, Luna panicked. Her paws flailed weakly. A rough, terrified growl echoed off the stone walls. She thrashed against the harness, and for one horrifying moment, Jake thought the straps would slip. "Hold her steady," Jake barked. Above, McConnell cursed under his breath and locked the ropes harder, using every ounce of strength to stabilize her. Jake grabbed a second rope tied to his belt and climbed fast. Reaching Luna's side, he spoke to her in a low, firm voice. "It's okay. You're okay. We've got you. Leo's waiting for you up there. You're almost home." It wasn't the words she understood, it was the tone. The steadiness. Luna stopped struggling, her breathing ragged but calmer. Her body sagged back into the harness. Leo, at the edge of the well, answered with another low, steady growl, like a heartbeat. The final stretch was brutal. Every inch they gained felt like a mile. Sweat poured down Jake's face, soaking his uniform. His arms screamed in protest, but he never let go of the rope stabilizing Luna. At last, hands reached over the edge and grabbed her harness. Carefully, they lifted her out and laid her gently on a stretcher. The team erupted into shouts and cheers, but they didn't celebrate long. Luna needed immediate care. Paramedics swarmed her with IVs, checking her pulse, running their hands carefully over her frame for fractures. One rescuer draped a wet cloth over her to cool her rising temperature. Meanwhile, Jake scrambled over the well's edge, collapsing onto the ground beside Leo. The little lion cub pressed his forehead against Jake's knee for a moment, a silent thank you. Jake ruffled Leo's dusty fur. "You did good, kid." Reyes crouched beside them, handing Jake a bottle of water. "I don't know how you stayed so calm down there." Jake took a long drink, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand. "I didn't have a choice. She needed us." Together, they watched as the team loaded Luna into the animal rescue van. Leo gently guided to climb up next to her. He refused to be separated, lying beside his mother protectively. Before the doors closed, Jake caught one last look, Luna's tired eyes meeting his. A flicker of understanding passed between them. She knew he had saved her. The van roared to life and sped off toward the emergency veterinary center on the other side of town. Jake sat back on the dusty ground, every muscle in his body aching, and let out a long breath. "Risky operation," Daniels said, walking up behind him. "Could have gone bad fast." Jake nodded slowly. "Yeah, but it didn't." Daniels grunted. You ever think about switching over to search and rescue full-time? Jake laughed. The sound raw but genuine. Maybe after a few weeks of sleep. Around them, the rescue site was being packed up. Officers rolled up ropes, folded ladders, and dusted off their gear. The sun was starting to sink low in the sky, casting everything in a golden light. As Jake watched the last of the rescue trucks disappear down the road, he realized something. Today wasn't about badges or rules or protocols. Today was about listening when no one else would have. It was about risking everything. Not because it was easy, but because it was the right thing to do. And sometimes, the call for help didn't come from a radio or a phone. Sometimes, it came from a small, silent lion cub standing in a doorway. And sometimes, that was enough. The world seemed to hold its breath as Luna's heavy body was lifted over the crumbling edge of the old well. The ropes strained, boots dug into the dirt as officers and rescuers pulled with everything they had. Dust rose in thick clouds, clinging to sweat-soaked skin and burning in their lungs. Finally, with one last coordinated heave, Luna was pulled free and onto solid ground. For a second, everyone just stared. Luna lay still, chest heaving, eyes half closed. Her thin frame bore the marks of her ordeal, scratches, bruises, and dirt matted into her once glorious coat. But she was alive. She had made it. And then, before anyone could move, Leo broke into a sprint. The small cub bolted forward, letting out a high, urgent yowl. He crashed into Luna's side, nuzzling frantically against her, pawing her face, licking her dusty fur. His little body trembled with relief and joy. Luna stirred, lifting her head weakly. Her eyes found Leo, and with a low, rumbling purr, she pressed her nose against him, pulling him into her with what strength she had left. Mother and son, separated by terror and danger, reunited at last. The rescue team stood back, no one daring to speak. The scene was too pure, too real. Jake wiped a hand across his face, pretending it was just dust in his eyes. Leo circled his mother, licking her face, checking her like he couldn't believe she was really there. Luna responded with soft, comforting rumbles, wrapping a tired paw around him to hold him close. They stayed like that for a long moment, time forgotten. The dangers of the past few hours slipping away under the weight of the bond between them. Then something happened that none of them expected. Slowly, Luna turned her head toward Jake. Her amber eyes, sharp and intelligent even in exhaustion, locked onto his. She studied him for a long moment. Then, with deliberate grace, Luna bowed her head low, dipping her massive, weary frame in a gesture unmistakable in its meaning. Thanks. Jake stood frozen, heart pounding. No words could have carried more weight than that single silent movement. For that brief, breathtaking instant, the line between human and animal, rescuer and rescued, blurred and disappeared. They weren't officer and wild creature. They were simply beings, both survivors, both grateful in ways language could never fully explain. Around them, the others stood in hushed silence. McConnell removed his hat without realizing it. Reyes bit her lip hard to keep from crying. Even the hardened paramedics, used to every kind of disaster and rescue, found themselves rooted to the spot. The moment stretched, sacred and undeniable. Then, with a final nudge to Leo, Luna turned toward the open land beyond the ruins. Her muscles, weak but driven by a mother's unstoppable will, carried her forward. Leo trotted at her side, occasionally glancing back at the humans he somehow seemed to understand had saved them both. No one tried to stop them. No one had the heart to. The two lions disappeared into the tall grass and crumbling buildings, their golden forms blending into the colors of the earth and sky. Nature reclaiming its own. Jake stood there long after they vanished from sight. Reyes finally stepped up beside him. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. Sometimes there were no right words. Only the feeling. It was McConnell who finally broke the silence. His voice low and rough. Never seen anything like that in my life. Jake nodded slowly. Me neither. Sergeant Daniels clapped Jake on the back. Hard enough to make him stumble slightly. Hell of a day, Turner. Hell of a day. Jake half smiled. Yeah. Worth every second. The team slowly packed up their gear. But none of them spoke above a whisper. It felt wrong to break the quiet too soon. Like talking too loud in a church. When Jake climbed into the passenger seat of the rescue truck, he leaned his head back against the window and closed his eyes. He could still feel the weight of Luna's gaze on him. Not just gratitude, but recognition. An acknowledgement that trust could exist between worlds that were never meant to meet. That sometimes, when it mattered most, two species could understand each other in ways far deeper than words. As the truck rumbled to life and bumped down the dusty road back toward the city, Jake opened his eyes to watch the sunset burning orange across the sky. Somewhere out there, Leo and Luna were together again. Free. And somehow, knowing that made everything, every risk, every ounce of fear, every aching muscle, worth it. Because today, humanity had not just rescued two lives. It had honored them. It had remembered what it meant to share the earth. To fight for something bigger than itself. And for Jake, for all of them, that was the greatest victory of all.
Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please comment 1. And if you didn't, just hit like. See you in the next videos.